I was a manager for about 25 years, teach leadership management courses on Udemy as well, and I've done that live and in other places, and really have led and helped other managers develop, become better managers. And now with ChatGPT, I can see a lot of opportunity here where you can really help managers develop their skills, to help develop their management skills. So we're going to look at 3 ways, where you can start asking ChatGPT some questions that might help you to become a better manager. And then after that, it's up to you in terms of your own creativity and what things you might be struggling on. But I'm going to pick up 3 things that are very, very challenging things for managers and see if they can help you here. And really the first one here I'm going to look at is performance management, right? Let's say I have a team member, we'll start typing out. I have a team member who keeps coming in late. I have a team member or employee who is always late, and how would I conduct a performance review and write them up if they continue to come late, their job may be terminated. All right. I should say here, instead of asking at ChatGPT, I could say, I am a manager, right? And then I have this team member problem who's late, and I need to, I have a team member who's always late, and I need to conduct a performance review and write them up, right? Give them a formal and write-up. They continue to lead to their job being heard. How can I communicate this effectively one-to-one, all right? So this is boy, this is pretty fast, right? But this is an example of, where things that are common things for management that can be difficult conversations. And it's going to really start helping to outline how you can approach this challenging thing, right? So talk about being specific. And I've done a lot of this, so we can kind of evaluate ChatGPT here. I've read up a lot of people, terminate a lot of people too. Talk about the lateness for the talent impacts the team, listen actively, focus on the impact, focus on the behavior. Does it talk about there? Focus on the consequences. It should say something or, a good thing. This is where human beings are always stronger or can be stronger. I would always talk about, make sure you don't focus on the person as an individual saying, oh, you're a lousy, lazy person, but focusing on the impact of the behavior. Your lateness is causing this impact, not that you're a terrible person. Offer support, set clear expectations, give them specific deadlines for improvement, what that would look like, document the conversation, right? So make sure. I've seen so many managers, they have these conversations, they don't document the conversation, and then it's hard for them to progress to the next step if they have to, let's say, terminate somebody because they don't have documentation. That can be real important, especially with larger companies. And certain companies, they have real specific documentation things around, performance, improvement plans or those types of things. So there's a nice little outline as far as how I could go about talking to somebody, writing them up for their poor performance, and I could say, what if they say being late is not their fault? Right? Just a lame excuse, right? And at one time, things happen, right? Traffic, things happen, right? But the people who are chronically late are the ones you're looking at writing up, not the person who got in a car accident on the way to work, and they're late because of that. So, it's important to listen to their explanation. Is there something going on? Maybe there's a family emergency, a death in the family, or you want to find out what's going on. But this is the point where we've had many of those kinds of conversations, many times, right? So that's the first one. Now the second one is, let's say the tough one is terminating people, right? If you're a manager, you have to fire people or terminate them. How can ChatGPT give some advice around that? It's good to get the human advice. It's good to talk to your HR people and get advice around that. And certainly, what are your company policies? Don't let ChatGPT tell you what your company policies are. You know your company's policies, or you need to find out. But ChatGPT can help us. Like now, let's say I need to terminate his employment for this. Remember, we got a whole conversation going, right? How would I prepare for the termination meeting, right? So you're wondering, well, how do I prepare for this? And then you might say, well, how do I start talking to them? That'll be the second thing we'll ask, right? So it says terminate employees never easy. I mean, it's kind of how it pulls up, like, it's not saying, yeah, terminate the guy. I'm an artificial intelligence. What do I care? You stupid humans. Terminate him. Like, no, it's not easy. Most managers will say the hardest thing a manager does is terminate an employee. I would certainly do that. We don't want to terminate employees. We want them to succeed, but sometimes it doesn't work out, and we do need to have termination meetings. So when we prepare, we're doing things like reviewing documentation, plan what you'll say, whether you're scripted out, choose the timing, location, decide on logistics, making sure that everything's ready if there's a severance package or whatever. Also, this is very important too. So this is where ChatGPT is doing good here. Have a witness. So if you ever have to terminate someone, always make sure there's a second person in the room, who's a human resource manager, your boss. Have a witness. Then you have another protection for yourself. Be prepared for emotional reactions. Follow up. And let's say there's an emotional reaction. You can say maybe we're like. Let's say they start crying. Well, I'm being real terrible, aren't I? What should I do, right? Because we're compassionate managers. We're not, what should I do? We're not evil, terrible managers that say, stop your crying, get out of here. Get your box and go. No, people are asking these questions, care, right? Or, so they start crying. It's important to respond with empathy and respect, and here's some tips on how to handle the situation, right? So maybe we should ask, what if I start crying as the manager, right? Maybe it was a friend of mine or somebody I've known for a long time or whatever. I guess you could ask it that. All right, so that's the second thing is like, all right, now we know how to handle performance management. ChatGPT can help us that. You can ask more questions on that. We know about termination. Now that we've terminated somebody, now we need to hire somebody. So that's number 3 of our little management thing here is let's talk about interviewing, right? Like, so maybe I want to start a new chat with this because it's really kind of now a new thing. So let me start a new chat. I want to appear to where it's a new chat, and I'm going to start a new chat. And let's say I am a manager, and I need to hire a salesperson, all right? We sell fishing tackle, right? We sell to maybe stores, to big retail stores, right? Walmart, whatever, big retail stores. I could just start, ask it for a job description. I have a different lesson on job description things, but maybe I could just say, could you give me a list of sample? Could you give me a, let's say long list, whatever that means, of sample interview questions, all right? And we'll see what a long list is to them, all right? So I'm hiring a salesperson to sell fishing tackle, right? So I might want to say, just give me a list of interview questions, or give me 10 sample interview questions or whatever, right? So this is going to come back because I asked it very generically. It's going to give me very generic things, right? What's your experience in sales? What do you know about fishing tackle industry? What makes a good salesperson? How do you prioritize leads? These are actually good things. And then based on their answers, you can follow up, how do you manage your sales pipeline? Actually, these are better than I thought. I thought they might come back, tell me what's your greatest strength, what's your greatest weakness, all those things that we were always asked in interview questions. But because I had put in information that I'm hiring a salesperson, that we do fishing tackle to big stores, it's coming up with that, right? And then it's giving me some good questions that I can add on to maybe something I'm using with my company or ones I always like to use before. You can see these are a lot of good questions. How do you handle rejection and failure and all that? And it will keep going. So we're just going to stop here. And you can switch it up and say, I'm also hiring a web developer for the business. What questions could I ask, right? So then you can switch it up. Again, I'm within my conversation. Something went wrong here, so I'm going to regenerate the response. So it got confused there. Sometimes that happens with ChatGPT. So let me start a new chat here. I'm just going to go like this. And let's go ahead and start a new chat. And I'm going to just copy it in there. I'm manager. I need to hire a web developer. Web developer. We sell fishing. Could you give me a list of interview questions, right? And so it's going to think about it for a moment here, and then it'll start coming back with interview questions. Again, you want to be as specific as you can. That might give it a little bit more information to pull from. Looks like hiring web developers is harder than hiring salespeople, or maybe my internet's slowing down. That could be something as well too. So here's some sample questions when interviewing candidates for a web developer position in your company, right? Now the salesperson was all about, tell me about your experience selling fishing tackle. What do you know about fishing tackle? Things where product knowledge was very important, where for a web developer, you might be less so. What's inspired you to be a web developer? What are some of the languages you do? Whatever, right? So what are the top 3 programming languages you feel most comfortable working with, right? And if you did research, it'd be the 3 that they use at the company, by the way, and why, right? So it's going to be less about product knowledge and more about, your programming and web development knowledge. Especially here, we're creating e-commerce websites, right? Because we sell fishing tackle, what's technologies and all that. So you get the idea that as a manager, you can use ChatGPT to help you with performance management, how the conversation goes, termination, getting prepared, getting ready, writing reports. I mean, just think about everything that you do as a manager that you could be doing. And here's just a simple way to really start getting some easy to get started with interviewing questions. And you'd want to build on this to, to get more detail. For example, I'm going to hit stop generating. Give me an example of a Python coding question, right? That could be asked, or maybe they'll ask about binary trees or something like that, right? So here's an example. Write a Python function that takes a list of integers and input and returns the sum of all the even numbers in this. Here's an invention of what that function might look like, right? So isn't that cool? It's going to show me the code. So I might ask somebody that question, and I can then compare that code to what they do. And then we got the test function. You can copy the code and all that too as well, right? So isn't that pretty cool? And that's all within the chat about hiring a web developer and all that as well. See all this cool stuff it's doing. All right, so with that, that's some things you can use you might not have thought of in terms of how a manager could use how a manager could use ChatGPT as well.